Hey, all my IFG friends, this is Steve. I want to say, if you like movies like I do, we've started a new podcast called Happy Hour Flicks. You can find it anywhere podcasts are found. It's all about nostalgic movies that we love, and we bring on special guests each episode, and we also have specialty cocktails made for each one, too. So it really is an hour of a good time talking about movies that we love, like Gremlins, Seven, Free Willy. We talk about The Last Starfighter also. I mean, we kind of run the gamut across all the decades and really have a great time. So wanted to invite you to come over and join us. That's Happy Hour Flicks, anywhere podcasts are found.
Film is an emotional medium. You feel it in your guts, in your entrails, and the people that give you that emotion are the actors. They're your conduits, they're your vessels.
This is the
Independent
Filmmakers Guide
from Framework Productions.
Framework
Productions.
What is up, and welcome to the Independent Filmmakers Guide. Today, we are talking with writer and director Sabrina Doyle for the film Lorelei. Now, you could have seen this in the 2021 Tribeca Film Festival. It's also with Vertical Entertainment. It's a family drama based around, a family in rural, like an uncommon American family in rural America.
That's right. It's a beautiful film starring two incredible leads, Jenna Malone and Pablo Schreiber. Sabrina talks a lot about how casting is half the battle when you have two amazing actors delivering incredible performances on a very concise, schedule when you're doing an indie feature. She also speaks quite a bit about working with children, which I found fascinating because she had 3 kids on this set playing Jenna's children during the movie. And she speaks a lot about how to work with them and how to get the actors working together. We also talk about underwater filming, as well as many other things from top to tail on the movie Lorelei.
I'm Stephen Pierce.
And I'm James Allardyce.
This is the Independent Filmmakers Guide. Lorelei. Can you just give us a quick, if people haven't seen it yet, because it comes out end of July, correct?
Well, I call it a working class fable about a biker, a mermaid, and 3 shades of blue. That's kind of how I entice people. But but the synopsis, the more sort of fleshed out synopsis is that it's about a man who's been in prison for 15 years, who comes out of prison and goes back to his small town and bumps into his high school girlfriend. And in the 15 years that he was away, she had 3 children by 3 different fathers, and they strike up, they re-strike up a sort of tentative relationship. And he has to sort of contend with the fact that she has these 3 children who are difficult children and challenge him in very different ways. And he has to decide, really whether he wants to be part of this family. And, against the sort of backdrop of, he gets re-involved with his motorcycle club, which is how he got, which is how he sort of committed his crime that got him in prison in the first place. So he strikes back up friendships there. And he has to just deal with sort of being underemployed as well, and kind of, the fact that sort of getting back on your feet is tough in these types of communities where many people are unemployed or underemployed. So it's a slice of blue collar America, but it's infused with a bit of dream stuff and a bit of magical realism as well, which we can talk about later, because I thought it was very important to show, not just the hardship of these lives, but also the kind of the resilience, the tenacity, and the dream life of the characters.
And the bright spots. I come from Ozark, very rural, very poor America. So this is, I recognize this community and I recognize these people. So in that world, also just to kick off, two strong center performances from both Pablo and Jenna. They both really feel like it's very, very strong center post performances. Had to make you very happy to get to work with actors like that.
My God, yeah. It's a dream come true, really. They elevate the film so much, and really, I was just incredibly lucky. It's my first film, so straight out of the gate to get 2 incredible, actors. They're actors, right? They just have this incredible sort of talent, this craft that I think people really look up to, and I was just really lucky to work with them. And they elevated the film. It's one thing sort of writing a screenplay, but then hearing it spoken in the words of actors and elevated in the mouths of actors and then elevated by them is something else. So it was, and they really helped me with the kids as well. They really the kids were non-actors and had never acted before, conversely. So having these pros on set, show them the ropes, and I can get into sort of some anecdotes about that, and how the two veteran actors helped me with the
Yeah.
kids, but that was invaluable.
Yeah, like what do you remember?
Well, so I mean, I think Jenna was a child actor, right? So she started very young, so she kind of understood what the kids were going through, and she just intuitively knew what they needed. So, before we ever sort of put a foot on set, she said, "Look, I want to spend an evening with the kids. I want to cook dinner with them as a family, and I want to sort of spend time as as a little family unit, me and the three of them." So they, I wasn't present. I was like, "You guys do it," and I was around most of the time, but for that evening, she just went and spent the night with the kids and cooked dinner with the kids. And I remember Chancellor said to me after, I said, "Was that helpful?" And Chancellor said to me, "Yeah," she said something that was really helpful to me. And she told me that it was really important to ask questions on set, and that it was really important, if I didn't understand, to clarify. And if I didn't, not just to sort of blindly accept direction or instructions, but to really engage in the process and to understand it, to make sure. And I think that's really important, because when you're intimidated, sometimes you nod your head when someone tells you something, as if and I think kids are sort of prone to doing this, right? They're not, in a situation where they're on set with a bunch of adults and you say, "Can you do this?" You can imagine them nodding their head and doing it, but not fully sort of understanding why or how. And so I think her giving them permission, and I think that what the adult actors did, was give the kids permission at all stages to sort of engage their natural curiosity, their natural instincts. And so that was really important for Chancellor. And then the thing I think about, the sort of anecdote I think about that was the sort of most emblematic of the adults helping me with the kids, was in the scene where Denham, the youngest child, has to spits at their mother, Dolores, because Dolores is trying to force them to wear pants, and Denham doesn't want to wear pants. And so and this has been a sort of long-standing tension between them. So in the script and in the film, Denham spits at Dolores. Now, Parker, the actor who plays Denham, is the most sweet-natured child you can imagine. And obviously that was a really hard thing to ask them to do, to spit at an adult. And they were very nervous about it. And Jenna just turned it into a game. And she sort of completely took control of the scene. And she, because it was in the end, it was a physical scene between the two of them. It was between the two of them. And she made it, she knew it was personal, and she turned it into a game. And she said, "Look," she said, let's practice spitting. Let's show me how much spit you have. Is that all you have? Come on, you've got more spit than that. And she really just she just took away the taboo of spitting. She took away the kind of stigma of it, and she just made it fun. And we were able to get the scene. And it was entirely down to Jenna sort of taking control of that moment, and really just working with Parker to make sure Parker was comfortable that we were able to get that scene. And then similarly, I think, Pablo did exactly the same, and, was just a real sort of mentor for the children. And in the scene, there was a scene that Chancellor was really nervous about, which was the punch scene, where Dodger, the oldest child, punches the sort of stepfather figure, Wayland, and Chancellor, the actor who plays Dodger, was nervous about that scene. And what Pablo did, which was so generous, obviously sometimes when actors, when you're not shooting their coverage and you're on the, you're over their shoulder and you're shooting the other actor's coverage, sometimes they give a little bit less, because it's not their coverage, and they, and frankly, it's exhausting to do it repeatedly, right? So they don't do it out of selfishness, they do it out of self-preservation. But Pablo was just so, he was just on, even when the camera was not on him. He gave 110%. He really, because he wanted Chancellor to get there, and he wanted Chancellor to have something to react off of, because acting is reacting to some extent. And he really worked the scene so that Chancellor could get worked up to the point where it felt natural and authentic, and a natural reaction to deliver that punch. And it was lovely, because Chancellor saw that Pablo did that, and so Chancellor reciprocated in kind. He saw that was what, when you're a generous scene partner, that's what you do. And he reciprocated. So even when when the camera was off him, he kind of, gave everything he had as well. So, and there were just sort of tons of instances like that. But, the adults, this Pablo and Jenna, were just so instrumental in getting those kid performances. And those kids had never acted before. Chancellor had done a few like commercials and a bit of catalog modeling and that kind of thing, but never really any substantial dramatic acting. And then the two younger kids hadn't done any acting at all.
That's interesting. I mean, and also you really set yourself quite a task, having 3 kids and then 3 kids that have never acted in anything. Because other films, like you can hide behind style a little bit, but this is a family-centric movie. All characters have to be unique and they have to carry the character. So how did you go about casting the kids?
Well, I knew that. We were really lucky in this film. I mean, I always say we had sort of several massive strokes of luck that kind of really helped us, and one of them was Pablo and Jenna saying yes to us, and the other one was getting the producers that we did on board. So Kevin and Francesca had produced the Florida project, so they had this kind of pedigree, I suppose, and have been in the industry a long time, and just kind of this experience, this wisdom, this pedigree, and you know, having them come on the project really sort of was really helpful to us. I mean, at that, you know, it made the difference between sort of us being taken seriously when we went out to actors. I think, you know, as a first-time filmmaker, I don't know that I would have been taken as seriously on my own as I was with Kevin and Francesca producing this. So that was, you know, so I think they were probably really helpful in helping us secure Pablo and Jenna as well. But in addition to the script, obviously, I mean, they have to respond to the script. But Kevin and Francesca Kevin had shared with me that Sean, when he was casting the Florida project, had really left no stone unturned. He'd gone into Walmarts. He'd sort of gone into kind of just anywhere where children congregate. And I was really struck by that. And I you know, and I too wanted actors who had not necessarily had that training, because sometimes with children, if they've been trained, it takes away a little bit of the realism, the spontaneity. You know, they act, you know, quote unquote, and they, you know, what they think is acting, but they lose maybe some of the kind of honesty of the performance if they've been trained too much. And so I really wanted children who had just had an incredible natural ability, but we're really sort of diamonds in the rough in a way. So I just did what Sean did, and I went to grocery stores, I went to summer fairs, I went literally anywhere where there were large crowds of people, and I would scan the crowd, and I would your eye gravitates towards charismatic children, children who other children listen to, children who make, you can just spot them, you can even spot them at a distance. You can sort of see who the little leader is in their group. And so, I would just sort of, any child that I thought had something, I would just go up to I'd find the parents, and I'd go up to the parents and I'd say, hey, we're doing a film, here's a flyer. And it was a strange thing to do, and I'm not sure everyone believed us, but we went everywhere. We kind of, we went to sports games. We went to supermarkets, Walmarts, Targets, your hardware stores. We just went, and then we also did the classic sort of, we had a casting director in Oregon as well, and reached out to all the theater camps, any summer school that was happening that had any kind of acting element. We went and we'd watch the children in class, and any kids that we thought had something special, we'd say to the teacher, would they audition for us? So we really sort of probably ended up seeing hundreds of children, and then we were lucky that we were able to narrow it down to these three. And when I saw them, it was obvious that they would be the ones. I mean, they're just so great. They're so on. I mean, as adults, I feel like we put up walls, and we don't want people to see how we feel, and we conceal our emotions, because often our emotions are sort of shame or fear or something, and so we don't want people to sort of see behind our eyes to what we're really feeling. But children don't necessarily have that instinct yet. They're a bit more honest, and so actually working with children is a really good and refreshing reminder to be honest in your emotions and in your filmmaking. And it was I actually learned probably as much from them as they did from me. And because they would just if you make them comfortable and you create a comfortable set environment for them, and they're not scared, and they and I think for the kids it was just really helpful to have if they got nervous, I think it was just helpful having their parents nearby, because they'd look at their parents would give them a little smile and a little nod, and that would reassure them. And parents were invaluable as well. Actually, you cast children, you have to also cast parents, and if you've got supportive parents, which we did, that gets you so far.
And they become, I think, a mirror, right, to so much. And certainly in your film, I think when we're watching these kids, we instantly relate so much to them, and we see the world kind of through their eyes, because they are kids, and they not, so many of the other characters coming into your film are so tough and hardened. And seeing the kids, I think, is a way to connect pretty much all audience members instantly to this world. So going back to this world, why did you write this film? What inspired your writer director? what was the inception? Why did you write? What, did you have experiences in rural America? Did you know characters like this? What was it that got you into a very specific world with the motorcycle clubs and the work environment that they live in and all these things? How did you get into that?
Well, my background in the UK is a very working class blue collar background. I'm a first generation high school graduate, first generation college graduate, and my family are all I come from a family of immigrants to the UK, from Ireland on my dad's side and Italy on my mother's side. And everyone's a manual worker. No one, my dad, when I was growing up, was a construction worker, worked with his hands, and, and money was scarce. We didn't have much money, and kind of money was a constant source of tension in our family. But it was not without, but these things are complex, right? I mean, you have hardship on the one hand, and you have moments of joy, like the karaoke scene in the film, on the other, and but then the birthday scene where the kid doesn't get the birthday present they want. So all of that was very much drawn from my own background. And and so just to sort of backtrack a little, so I knew I wanted to make a film set in a blue collar community. I knew I wanted to make a film set in a blue collar community that was not going to be misery porn and was not going to be sadistic in terms of putting the characters really through the ringer and just making the worst things in the world. I mean, people say when they watch the film, we kept waiting for something really, really awful to happen. And then it doesn't. I mean, bad things happen in the film, and I think that's because, that sort of, I feel that sometimes films set in blue collar communities, especially if they're not made by people from those communities, tend to they tend to be issue focused. So they tend to want to sort of shed light on how hard it is, which is great and good, and that's important to do. But it's also, but I think it takes away a little bit of agency from the characters, and a little bit of, like, you can be poor and still have agency. You can be poor and still make meaningful choices. You can be even bad choices, good choices, bad choices, but choices. And and I just really wanted a film that wasn't sort of, that was neither kind of triumphant and uplifting and kind of ennobled these characters, or was completely miserable and completely depressing and completely without hope. I want, because I think the reality is somewhere in the middle. And it was important for me, having lived a very, grown up very working class, although obviously now I've kind of, I've since been to university. I've since sort of, so I'm sort of have a foot in many worlds now, which is strange, but that was very much my upbringing and very much my childhood. And then the funniest thing happened, which is kind of a bit of a throwback to how films used to be made, I think maybe in the 90s, which was I met someone who was a retired businessman who had wanted to, and this is where we got most but not all of our financing for the film, who had always wanted to make a movie, had never made one. And then when he retired, and this is nice because it kind of fits in with the Lorelei theme of having a dream, not really getting it the first time around, but being, but getting it in ways that you didn't expect later, maybe. And so he just decided when he was retired, that he was going to make a movie. And so he sought me out. He found me through mutual acquaintances and said, look, I'm willing to finance a film that is about a stepfather. Now, this was the only condition, because I was a stepfather in my life. I raised 4 children. I married my wife when she was a bit older, and we never had children of our own. And she had 4 children when we married, and aged between, I think, 6 and 13 or something, or 5 and 13. And he raised those 4 children, and he said it was the hardest thing he's ever done, but also the most rewarding thing he's ever done. And he felt that kind of male character in a film was an interesting character, a character we don't often see, that version of masculinity, maybe that tenderness, or, that journey of learning to love a child who is not your flesh and blood. I think he thought that was very meaningful. And so I had to find my way into that story. And I had this opportunity to make a film with that character. It's not necessarily what I would have gravitated towards. Someone had given me a carte blanche and said, make a film about anything. But I was able to really make it my own. I was able to make it my own by setting it in this blue collar community. I was able to make it, the film that really helped me think about the tone of this film was I rewatched Paris, Texas, because I thought, what are the films about fatherhood I really love? And Paris, Texas, I thought of Paris, Texas. I rewatched that film and thought sort of its bruised version of masculinity and fatherhood, the kind of American dream sort of reimagined, not succeeding the first time around, actually being a monumental failure at being a dad and a husband the first time around, but somehow redeeming yourself, set against this kind of epic sort of American West. And that film kind of really, really inspired me tonally when I was thinking about Lorelei. And then the rest of it came through research. So I knew I wanted it to be a blue collar sort of, family. And so, practically I'm in LA. I thought, the sort of close, I thought, it should be set in small town or rural America. And so I thought of Oregon because it was easy for me to travel to Oregon. And it was, and for a year and a half before shooting this film, I went up and down between LA and Oregon and just really went to every small town. I mean, I've, been to every small town in Oregon. I've knocked on doors, just, people were really generous. They told me about, I met bikers, and so the substance of the script, the detail of the script came from doing that research and kind of being really forensic about doing that research and really speaking to people about their lives, people who'd been through the prison system, people who'd sort of, were unemployed or underemployed, all of the sort of things, issues that sort of you see in the story that a lot of those came from kind of just talking to people. And a lot of those people ended up being extras in the film and we sort of integrated them in a really lovely way as well. So really, it came from that was the genesis, but then the substance, all the detail of it just came from the lived in quality of the film. I think was a result of really having committed to spending a lot of time up there. And I was constantly sort of every month I'd go up for like 3 or 4 weeks to Oregon, then come back down to LA and just really sort of, and I really got to know it very well. And I think that was important because obviously, it's one thing growing up sort of working class blue collar in the UK, but very different experience here in the US. I mean, there are certain things about the family dynamics, I think, that are probably universal, but the specifics of it, the biker community as well. We got to know that community really well. They were really instrumental in helping us make the movie. They kind of, some local bikers just really, really took us under their wings. I mean, it took a while to earn their trust and friendship, but once we did, I think they really took us under their wings and they helped us. They came out, they bought their bikes for us, and we'd never been able to get those big biker set pieces without the support of that community on a small indie. So I think I think the answer to your question is just tons of research, and you can't get around doing the work sometimes, and putting in the hours. And I think that's what we did.
Yeah, I think that, with an independent film and filming in small town America, that's kind of what, a lot of what you hope to get is a lot of people that are very, excited and interested. It's also interesting that your financing kind of came through, at least primarily through almost like a commission piece of work, in the beginning. So that's really now there was just the theme, but that's a very atypical story. So that's very interesting.
But I'm not sure there is a typical way. Do you know what I mean? Right. Like, I think everyone's story of how they got their film off the ground is different and unique. And there's always, because you always as a filmmaker, you're always like, what are the rules? What do I need to do? It's so hard to sort of rise in this industry that we all want a template. We all want a kind of set of rules that we can adhere to. And actually, I think, and this is so much the theme of the film as well, that you have to be resilient, you have to be creative, you have to bounce back from failure. The film is about bouncing back from failure. And I think you have to kind of see possibility where maybe in unexpected places. And I say this, for filmmakers who are kind of trying to get their films made, but it's also very much the theme of Lorelei, actually, because I think, I don't think we talk enough about our failures in life and about you sort of make a film and then you talk about the film and, but there are many sort of hurdles and many sort of, many forked paths on the way to making your film. And I think it's just really important to sort of recognize that the path to success is littered with failure. And that kind of is I think that when I always really appreciated hearing that on the way to making my first film. So I think it's worth just sort of spreading the
absolutely. So I want to, since we're in Oregon, let's talk a little bit about your production, just kind of overall. What was your schedule like, and how did that all shake out?
We shot for 25 days, 21 of which were in Oregon. And then we shot for 2 days in Sacramento, because we the location at the end of the film, the bar, the dive bar, it's called the Mermaid Bar at the end of the film, is in Sacramento, and it's really one of a kind. There's really nothing like it in the world. So we that took us to it was such an incredible location, and really, I just love the end of the film so much. It's my favorite bit of the film in some ways. And I think that the location was so key to achieving that and pulling off that kind of ending. So we had to go to Sacramento. So we went to Sacramento, and then we did 2 days in LA for the sort of LA stuff and some of the beach stuff as well. So but 21 days in Oregon. Yeah. So it was hard. We not only shot with 3 kids, we also shot, in 2 different states, 3 different, 3 different sort of and cities,
And not to focus too much on the tech stuff, but I know that it's always just something that interests people. What did you guys end up, what you shot on, and the camera and lenses and kind of your base package?
Yeah, so we shot on 5K HD on the Red Gemini, and we shot on vintage Cook Pancro lenses that gave us that kind of, that soft, warm look that the film comes from the lenses, which were vintage lenses, which I think was really important. And we had many favors and many, pulled many favors to get those. And so that was a wonderful thing to get. And then we mostly, we shot 185, or we shot 6. It's sort of 5K HD is actually a 16:9 format. So we windowed off to 185, which gave us a little bit of room to reframe in post, which is always a bit helpful. And then we shot, 24 frames a second, except for the water stuff. And we extensively tested the water stuff. And, you can't really shoot, you have to shoot water in slow-mo. And so we sort of tested a bunch of frame rates before going into production. And, I even, we went into a friend's pool, the DP and I, and kind of just did tons of underwater tests and just really looking for how to make water look the best that it did. And I was a sort of Jenna stand-in for that, and I can testify to how hard it is to do everything that she did underwater, because I was that person in the tests. And it's really hard not to look like you're drowning underwater when you're underwater and opening your eyes. And so the fact that she kind of pulls off these amazing, serene expressions, that convey so much, that convey maternal love and longing and regret, all while underwater when most people would just look like they're drowning, is incredible to me. So, but the water stuff we shot mostly at 60 frames a second, which was what we found tended to look. A few things we shot at different frame rate, but 60 FPS tended to be where it looked the best. You can't, water just does not look good shot, at 24. So then other stuff, lighting wise, we were shooting mostly in, real limited space, because we were shooting in real houses, real found locations, so space was always limited. But we mostly sort of had sort of soft, pretty diffused lighting, but with hard hits occasionally of sun or whatever. And what else? Technically, that's probably the most important stuff, right?
Well, taking that and talking about the fact that you shot this movie so quickly, but also if people listening have seen the film, or if they're going to see the film, either way, I know they'll agree if they've seen the film. And if they haven't seen the film, this is one of the big reasons to watch it, is just the amazing relationship between your 2 leads that was incredibly intimate and complex. So you're shooting a very fast schedule and shooting a lot, and yet you have these extremely intimate, complex scenes with your 2 leading actors. How did you go about that? Was there a lot of rehearsal? Have they worked together before? Did they know each other? It was
I can take no credit for any of this. No, they had not worked together before. No, I think they maybe had met once at a party or something, but not really. They didn't know each other. And we had a table read the night before, or 2 nights before we started production, but otherwise no rehearsal, which is very common. I don't think you can really expect a rehearsal period on an indie. Obviously that's the dream, is to have that, but honestly, I did rehearse with the children. I did, and or more than rehearse, we kind of did little sort of acting workshops with them, where we'd sort of get them to imagine their characters' backstories, and we taught them, just what a camera was, what a shot was, why we had to do the same thing 10 different times. Just kind of gave them a little boot camp in acting and filmmaking. So we did with the kids, but not, with the 2 leads, they just, I feel like I think, you hear sort of people say this all the time, but with actors of that caliber, you just have to get out of their way. You just have to kind of make them create a sort of comfortable environment on set where they're not distracted, and and it's hard on an indie because there were tons of distractions all the time, and I'm not sure we always achieve this, but it's just a testament to their sort of focus and their incredible professionalism that, despite being a very scrappy, very difficult production with tons of production difficulties, as invariably on this kind of film, they were able to really focus and really kind of, they both had I feel like if actors understand the screenplay and they understand the intent of the screenplay and they understand the tone of the screenplay, that's enough. Then, with actors of that caliber, I don't have to fine tune, the odd time we had a slightly different take on a scene. And, I would say, well, I see this scene as doing this. And then we'd have a discussion about that. But mostly I feel like if they understand the tone, they understand the character and the intent, then you're off to the races. I mean, it really, they're just so good. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's kind of, when you work with actors who are that good, you're like, oh crap, I never want to go back. I mean, it's just, that's what it is, that they're really good at what they do. This is why great actors really make a difference they just make a huge difference. I can't emphasize enough, and everything ultimately has to be about them. I mean, it's great to have beautiful images. It's great to kind of, really lean into the sort of poeticism and I love the cinematic medium, right? I love cinema language. I love all of that. But ultimately, if you don't have the performances and you don't have the kind of, the performances are the most important thing. The actors are the most important thing ultimately, because they're the kind of, film is an emotional medium. You feel it in your guts, in your entrails, and and the people that give you that emotion are the actors. They're your conduits, they're your vessels. And so, I think the way you work with great actors is to cast great actors. And so you write a script that they want to be in. That's important. And so you write a script that gives them a complex character. And I think the complexity of both Wayland and Dolores appeal to these actors. The fact that Dolores was a mum who made bad choices and was not a perfect mother really appealed to Jenna. Jenna had recently had this was her first big role back after having a kid. Her first kid, and she's been very open about the difficulties of being a single mother and how hard that is. And I think she really empathized with Dolores and really saw complexity in Dolores and an opportunity to show a mother who has many facets to her and many kind of, so that's a really meaty role for an actor, right? Not just the supportive girlfriend whose sole role in the screenplay is to help Wayland redeem Wayland. She's an antagonist. She has a whole arc of her own. She has a whole dream life of her own. She has her own thing that she's doing, aside from Wayland. And I think that that's really appealing. And then Wayland, for Wayland's character, I think Pablo just loved the fact that, and you've got in this one character, you've got sort of both tenderness and roughness and hardness, and you've got that in the same character in the same movie, and that the ability to kind of show both sides of to be able to sort of be, he's a huge guy, he's 6'5", he's got this kind of physicality that's really interesting, but also this kind of this softness and this tenderness that he shows in this film, and this capacity for love, which I think he you don't often see in the same role. When he does a sort of film that sort of depends on his physicality, it's often an action film, and so that complexity I think really appealed to him. So I just think writing a script that actors will want to be in is the key. And then once you've got that, and they're on and they're in, you're in a really, I was just incredibly lucky once they said yes. And and the chemistry between them was off the charts as well. I mean, it's, and chemistry is not what you, chemistry is interesting because I think their chemistry partly came from also the fact that they're very different as people. Pablo is a very kind of, comes from a theater background and has this kind of, he carries the weight of the film on his shoulders, and he's the sort of center around which the film revolves. And then Jenna is this kind of disruptive, kind of very spontaneous as an actor, does something different in every take. And so they're very different style. I mean, they're both brilliant in their own ways, but they both have quite different styles as actors, which I think kind of created some of that spark, I think, in the film.
Sure, yeah. So do you mind, how did you guys, how did post end up going? So how long were you editing the film? When did you finish shooting? How long did you edit? And what was that process like for you?
We were editing for about 9 months, which is a longish edit. But our editor was also the AE. we didn't, we didn't have enough money to have that be 2 people. So he was dealing with a lot of just the kind of, just the really boring organizational, we have a lot of footage, a lot of drives, and just the boring stuff of organizing the whole project. He was doing that, and also having the being the sort of creative person. So it was a longish edit at 9 months, but we got there, and then we were sort of due to premiere at Tribeca, and then we're sort of scrabbling to sort of finish post in time for Tribeca, so finishing the film, sound design and color basically, and music. And then we got sort of in, but 3 weeks to go for Tribeca 2020, the festival got cancelled because of the pandemic, and so we were unable, both to attend the festival in person at that point, but also to finish the film, because we had our score done at that point, but we didn't have a final. We hadn't mixed, and we'd done a bit of sound design, but no, not really anything that substantial. And then we hadn't, we'd started color, but we were definitely not sort of done with color. So those things had to wait then till the end of the summer of 2020, which was tough. It was tough to have an almost finished film, because I do think it actually makes a huge, we had screeners that we sent out to people, but I think it makes a huge difference if your film isn't mixed, for example, properly. A line of ADR can sound a bit artificial, and you think, oh, that was a bad line read or a bad performance, and it's not. It's just that the line isn't mixed properly, so it stands out. You noticed it and you notice that it's ADR because it sounds a bit hollow, it sounds a bit artificial in the sound. So just stuff like that. So it was just a bit frustrating for me as a filmmaker on a sort of technical level, sending out, because it's not just technical. I mean, I know when people say, oh, it's just technical, we can look past it. But actually the technical stuff really makes a difference to how absorbed you are in the story. And it can really take you out when there's technical. If you're not, even the most seasoned viewers, honestly, I think, who are used to seeing rough cuts of things, I think if something's unfinished, it just takes you out of the story a little bit. You just notice that kind of thing. And anyway, so we weren't able to finish that until the end of the summer. And then finally we were able to sort of do a final sound mix, and I was able to go in person because everything had started to open up at that point a little bit. And I was able to attend in person to do a sort of, for the color sessions and the final sound mix. And then we finally screened the film in front of an audience at the Deauville American Film Festival in France in the fall of 2020, which was amazing because it happened at a lull in the pandemic when, a few physical festivals did happen. And it was a beautiful festival. The French are such cinephiles. So, we had a massive audience for the film. We had a sort of 1,000 person auditorium, I think, that was practically full with a bit of social distancing, but full. And it was just lovely. It was a lovely experience. And we won the jury prize at that festival, which was such a lovely kind of, you make a film in a bubble and you don't know how it will be received. And it's always a bit nerve wracking. So to kind of just screen it and have it be appreciated was really nice. And the French are such great lovers of cinema, so it was really lovely to finally premiere the film in that kind of environment. But we lost a year basically, which was very frustrating.
I think that's going to be very difficult, but luckily, I mean, with your structure, it seems like your investor probably was not too, I mean, they understood, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like you had, a whole bunch of liability of funds you have to like give back with a certain time frame and that stretch. But so moving forward to kind of your distribution angle now, because now you're with Vertical's distributing the film, correct? And what has the process been like with getting on board with them and Tribeca and everything? What are you looking forward to?
So we have a sales agent, Visit Films, that is our sort of representative for selling the film both in the US and internationally. So we have the deal with Vertical domestically here in the US, but also various other sort of deals that are coming in from across the world, which is great. So the film is, coming out in the UK in the fall, which is wonderful. And, various other, we sold it to HBO Europe for Eastern Europe and various other sort of distribution deals that are coming in. And Visit is the kind of hub for everything. So they're our sales agent. And we're coming out day and date on July 30th. So that means we're sort of going to be screening digitally and in theaters at the same time. And so if you're, obviously if anyone is near a theater and has the opportunity to see this in a theater, I would love people to see it in a theater, because that's kind of how we shot it, to be seen in a theater. And I think it's a magical experience to, I just think having seen this film in sort of very many different contexts, I think there's something about the big screen experience that to me is still really special. And, every film really benefits from being seen on the big screen. So, and it was wonderful to see the film actually in a beautiful outdoor location by the Hudson River in New York the other week, which was amazing.
Oh yeah.
It was really beautiful. It did rain a little bit, but kind of that was in keeping with the Pacific Northwest setting of the story. Some people were like, "Oh, this is 4D. It's great." So I'm just looking forward to, but it's coming. But if you don't have, if you don't have a theater nearby that's showing it, you can see it on digital and so so you have both. You have the option of both, and I just want this film to sort of get the broadest possible audience, and so that I think the sort of day and date format is really good for that, for indies, because it gives you the opportunity to show it to people on the big screen, but also if you're not near a cinema that's showing it, which you may well not be, you still get access to these kind of independent films, which is great. Because I think a lot of times you sort of hear about these indies, and if and you're like, how do I see this film? And so, and you don't get to see it. So this kind of is the sort of best of all worlds, I think, for this type of film and this size of film. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to kind of it getting out there. Honestly, it's been a long time. Periwinkle, Amelia, the actress who plays Periwinkle, she was 10 and a half when we shot this film, and I saw her at Tribeca last week, and she's taller than me now. Like that shows you how much time has passed. I was like, oh, that you shot up. This is a long time in the life of a kid, as well. I'm excited for them to kind of, they've been waiting so patiently. And if it's a long time, if this year of the pandemic has been a long time in the life of an adult, it's even longer in the life of a kid. So I'm really just really excited for everyone to kind of, for the kids in particular. I think it's going to be really exciting for them, and we'll do some stuff in Portland, and we'll have a sort of opening in Portland, and we're screening in actually several theaters in Oregon, across Oregon, because there's obviously strong local interest in the film. So it'll be nice to kind of get back up to Oregon and just kind of say thank you to all the folks that helped us. I think we got a lot of favors, and I think that you said earlier that for an indie like this, it's about what you hope for is the favors, right, that kind of elevate you and give you that extra production value. And we got that. We had so much friendship shown to us and so much support. So it'd just be really nice to kind of bring the film home and show people like, okay, well, this is what this is what you contributed, and this is what it ends up. This is, there is something at the end of it. I think that'll be really satisfying.
Absolutely. Well, if you're listening to this podcast, the film is Lorelei. That's Lorelei. Look for it on screen, and if you can't find it on screen near you, look for it on VOD. Where else can people follow you or find more information about you? Do you have a website and Instagram? Where should they go?
Yeah, so Sabrina Doyle Film on Instagram, and also my website. So Sabrina Doyle Film, or Sabrina Doyle Film. I forgot my own name. SabrinaDoyleFilm.com.
Great, awesome, Sabrina. It was so nice to get to meet you, and thank you very much for sharing your film and coming on.
Thanks, guys. It was lovely talking to you.
Filmmaking is a collaborative experience, and so is this podcast. Please take a second to subscribe so you know about future episodes, and leave a review. It really does help us. For more info about today's guest, please visit independentfilmmakersguide.com, where you can check out all our episodes that run the gamut of filmmaking topics. They're available in both audio and video format.
IFG is created by Framework Productions. This episode was hosted and directed by Stephen Pierce and James Allardyce. It was produced and edited by Matt Mundy and Audrey Ray McHale. The music is by Glassboy. Find his music on freemusicarchive.org. See and listen to all the episodes at independentfilmmakersguide.com. Thanks for listening. Hey friends, we just wanted to take a quick moment to talk about two personal things. First, we wanted to thank you, our listening community, and our wonderful guests. Learning so much together along the way and continuing to learn, sharing our stories, making a lot of new friends, and collaborating, which is exactly what this is all about. Which also brings me to my second point. In great part to many of these new relationships, we wanted to let you know that we've taken a lot of this advice ourselves and made our own narrative feature film, Herd, H-E-R-D, Herd, which is premiering this October on Friday the 13th in select theaters as well as on VOD. Personally, I think it's the perfect kind of scary movie to watch during our favorite scary season. So we'd love for you to celebrate with us and watch Herd. You can pre-order it on Apple TV, and of course, do the communal thing, see it in theaters. Of course, for all of this, please see our show notes, but basically, we're going to keep it all updated at herd.film. That's HERD.FILM, herd.film as well. Thank you again, and be sure to give us a rating and a review over on Apple Podcasts so we can continue to build this community and collaborate. IFG, how movies get made.